Welcome to the Trailhead from Ultra Sign Up, where big adventures begin. Trail running is so much more than just a sport. It's a community, a culture, a way of seeing the world. On this show, we're not dissecting splits or debating shoe specs. We're here to get to the heart of it all, the people, the places, and the stories that speak to the soul of the sport. Join me, Zoe Rome, and my co-host, Brendan Leonard, as we'll bring you conversations with the everyday athletes, local legends, quirky characters, and creative minds who make trail running what it is. Messy, joyful, gritty, and deeply human. Because it's not just about chasing finish lines. It's about the friendships forged on long climbs, the lessons learned in the pain cave, and the weird, wild moments that remind us why this sport is about so much more than the miles. Hey trail friends, we want to hear from you. Ultra Sign Up is running a quick listener survey to help us keep making podcasts that you love. It only takes a few minutes, and your feedback really helps us shape what's next. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thanks for being part of our trail running community.
If you're anything like me, which you're probably not that much like me, but in the running sense, you've probably been spending a lot of time in your running shoes this summer. But have you ever thought about what's between you and the shoes you're running in? Throughout the summer, we here at the Trailhead have been telling you about the great products that Cetus makes, like socks, insoles, and sprayable cheese. I'm just kidding, they don't make sprayable cheese. They make socks, insoles, and other things. Cetus makes high-performance footbeds, socks, and insoles specifically designed for trail runners, like you and me. They've built a foot care system that revolves around keeping you moving mile after mile, no matter where you're headed, including the deep darkness of the pain cave. From socks tailored to your needs, such as ankle protection, blister prevention, or breathability, to insoles tailored to keep your feet supported and planted firmly on the ground, Cetus products work together to improve your experience on the trails. And once you're confident in your socks and insoles, Cetus makes a host of other tools like toe caps to prevent black toes. Boy, I might actually need some of those. And anti-friction cream to stop blisters in their tracks. All parts of the system built to keep runners like you and me moving. For a limited time, Ultra Sign Up runners get 20% off all Cetus products at cetus.us. That is SIDAS.us. So, Zoe, have you ever done a loop course for a race?
Have I done a loop course? I haven't. I've always wanted to do UTMB, which is a 106-mile loop. I've done Western States, which is a point-to-point. And I've done Leadville, which is an out and back. And I've done Run Rabbit, which is a series of small ovals strung together. Have you done a loop race?
It's very hard to draw that one on a map for people.
Yeah.
I have. I've done this same 100K twice that is 20-mile loops. And I know some people hate loop courses, but
yeah,
I kind of enjoy them because you just leave your stuff there and you're like, yeah, just switch socks every loop, and maybe get a little pizza or whatever, and and it's where the loop starts and ends is very civilized. So if you're hungry and you're like, hey, I'll be back here in 20 miles, can you literally go grab a pizza and have it back here when I come back? It's pretty sweet.
Definitely takes out logistical complexity, but in what you sacrifice or what you gain in logistical simplicity, how much do you sacrifice from just seeing the same stuff over and over again, seeing the same people over and over again?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it a sacrifice? Because I think the only hard part is leaving the start finish area.
It's true.
The second and third time, or that course is it's a 100-mile race. They do a 100-mile race too. So there's people who have to leave 4 times, and I think that's where the inertia gets people. But there's no resistance to quitting there. You're just like, yeah, I'm done, and my ride's right here, so let's go. And then you're home in 10 minutes or whatever. So
it makes me wonder about how much of in these ultras where it's gotta get to the next aid station. I'm tricking my brain into yes, we have to run to the next aid station. I sort of fabricate the reality where what I'm doing is necessary and essential, but it's like when you're running a point to point, when you're running from point A to point B. So I think there is something kind of like magical about how running in a circle like seems a lot more comfortable with its own uselessness.
To me, and like people hate it, but I like, how would they do in like the 1500 meters in the Olympics? Like, and
Yeah.
then I hate to break this to you, but it's loops,
Yeah. Or like
steeplechase, same thing.
same thing.
Yeah.
And you never hear track athletes like griping about like how the view never changes.
Yeah.
You know, and they're just looking at stripes.
Yeah.
Or like, have you heard about the self-transcendence ultra that they do in like around one block in New York City where people just run it for like months straight, the self-transcendence ultra?
My friend Sanjay made a documentary about that.
Oh my God.
3100 Run and Become. Yeah, I'm very familiar with it. Yeah, it's incredible. Those people are, it's amazing. And it's not even like closed. It's like they're just on the sidewalk with people, doing it. So.
Yeah. Open course. How many loops do you think you could run of the self-transcendence ultra?
Boy, it's like, I think it's like 0.56 miles.
Oh.
So, and you basically have to do, I think they do like 55 miles a day or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I could probably get out there.
I feel like I could do a couple days, probably,
Yeah.
There's good food involved.
I would maybe start with something a little smaller, like a 24-hour race that's a loop or something like that. I don't know if that's the way to dive in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the most incredible loop race that we have on Earth. Yeah.
I haven't done that many epic loops, but I do like my normal run is just like a 6.5 mile loop around my town. And I feel like I've done that hundreds of times and I really grow to love it and I never get tired of it.
I do this thing where I like don't want to do straight out and back because I don't like the map that it shows on Strava. So I'll even just like do a little lollipop at the end sometimes or like whatever. Just like, yeah, okay. Let's just make a little circle here. Make it interesting.
See, circles do just hit a little different.
They do. Yeah. Yep.
Well, let's talk to our friend Nick about circles.
Yes.
Today on the Trailhead, we're chatting with writer and runner Nick Triolo. His new book, The Way Around, came out July 8th and explores what it means to move through landscapes differently, embracing circles instead of summits, presence instead of performance. We talk about running, writing, and how the shapes we follow can shape us back. Welcome, Nick.
Do you think being handsome is going to enable you to sell more books?
It's already paid off. I've sold at least 3, and they're like 2 of them my mother. Yeah, it's totally paid off. Yeah.
I have noticed that if men take their shirts off and then put the word Spartan in the title of their book, it will do well.
And there's flames somewhere. Flames.
Yes.
Flames and mutton. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, mutton. If there was more meat and Spartans in your book, I feel like it would sell better. That just respectfully, one writer to another.
Somebody was like, Romanticy's all the rage right now. And I was like, damn, I should have just put some like dragons
Fairy smut
in my book.
Yeah.
Yeah, what am I doing? Missed that one.
That does sort of bring me to our first question. As long as I've known you, you've been obsessed with shapes and running in specific shapes, circles most of all. Where did that obsession come from? Did it come from the running? Did it come from the writing first? And how did it lead to you writing a book about moving in circles?
I think it actually came from in my early 20s, like this deep obsession with wanting to feel what it felt like to go around the world. Like there was like this, I had this feeling in my like late teens, early 20s where I was like, I need to save up all the money. I need to rob banks to basically like take my body around the circumference of the planet somehow in some way after I get out of college. And so I did that. And that was like this first, I know it sounds sort of like a coming of age story, but it actually was the first sort of, invitation from the world. And I mean that like literally, like, I just couldn't think of anything else to do with my life after graduating college. All my friends were getting like big person jobs. They were like doing things with 401ks. And I was like, I want to like feel the shape of this planet now. And so, that's how it sort of started. And then how it evolved into running was something like, moving to the Pacific Northwest, where like, as you looked out onto the horizon, you'd see these volcanoes everywhere. You see these beautiful like little tents out there. And the more I got into running, the more I realized that there are these really beautifully aesthetic loops around their base. And I was started to explore these routes that were like, so I think that in a nutshell was probably the evolution of being interested in shapes as a way of moving through landscape.
Well, the line from the book is, how are the shapes we follow in life also shaping us?
Mhm.
Without answering that question, could you describe kind of what the book is about? It's called The Way Around.
I guess so. The book is called The Way Around: A Field Guide to Going Nowhere. It's about actually having a bone to pick with language. In fact, I think language that the three of us love so much. As I got deeper and more invested in the ultra scene, sort of in the when was that? Like late 2000s, um, in Portland, I got really interested and curious about slash frustrated in language that I was also using around, and how I was moving through landscapes in terms of accumulating experiences, like being a sort of a collector. Like language landscape is like a collector's item or something, that the more peaks that I could bag, the faster I could go, the better I would be or something. That vernacular, that lexicon got in under my skin, even though I was like feeding that beast. And so I when I yeah, so actually, like, as I got sort of like increasingly obsessed with running and with performance, I looked for a sort of a counter shape, in some ways, a counter narrative to that, and was kind of curious what's behind that, and how does that relate to how we see the world, how we consume the world, how we consume um, media, et cetera, and how we sort of this sort of never enoughness. And I started being really, I was like tenderized by this question to the point where, like, I started researching these people who would walk around mountains as opposed to up them, and leave the summit alone. And so it was sort of like this anti-hero story, interrogating like the peak bagger in some ways. And I spent the last 10 years basically traveling around the world, to chart, to understand better what's behind that movement. It's a pan-cultural. It's called circumambulation, which is the world's longest word. It's like 18,000 syllables. Circumambulation, terrible, but it's the act of walking around the base of a place and leaving the summit alone. So it's a sort of I say in the book, but it's something like a, how do we move through a shape that's something like a kinesthetic form of restraint, where we're leaving something about the core. We're not having to sort of get to the sort of some linear narrative of some sort of king of the mountain, God's eye view, human exceptionalism.
I do want to pull on that thread a little bit about like the theme in the book, and also just throughout your writing and in general, about resisting the summit, right? Because it, like, summiting, the peak bagging of it all is kind of this funny way that we humans have of like centering ourselves in a narrative where, like, yeah, the mountain really doesn't care. The mountain cares not that you are on top of it. Mountain is unchanged. And so I'm curious to how focusing on circles has changed your relationship to running, in terms of like giving you a new sort of orientation towards objectives. Like, how has this exploration like shifted your mindset? Like, do you still go out and run up mountains, or are you all about that circle life now?
I have evidence that you've run up a mountain in the last.
I love summits, and that's part of the book. That's part of the tension. That's the dialectic. That's like, I ran up Mount Jumbo here in Missoula, just the other day, and at sundown, and was up there by myself, and like came across, this little mountain in town here in Missoula is off limits from like December through April most winters for elk migration, and they just opened up. It's a beautiful expression of restraint within the city limits in some ways. Like, it's a cool place where it's just like, humans can't recreate here for 4 months. Um, it opened up. I went up there the other night, and as I got to the summit of Jumbo, there was 25 elk at the top grazing, and I stopped a couple of 100 yards short to watch them, and be with. And this sounds a little whatever woo, but like, the elk actually stopped me in my tracks, and I just like hung out with the elk for about 15 minutes, as opposed to feeling like my run is not complete if I didn't get to the top of this thing. Um, so that was like a recent example for me of a way that it's sort of incorporated into my movement. I'm still running almost every day. Um, Often it's like linking up high points. I think what it's done, though, is it's actually made me more in touch with the goals um, of being like being in the place where I am, and also actually thinking a little more creatively about where are my routes taking me, the aesthetic, not necessarily having to collect high points or vert-tastic runs to hit a certain number. For me, just personally, and I know I've done a lot of that. I've done a lot of, I mean, to get to to get ready for certain races, I was so interested in allegiant to numbers and vertical gain and all this. And I don't, there's no judgment there, but for me, it actually, at some point it actually took away from the depth and presence of my experience, because I was like just tallying the metrics, and any way I could. And that for me, and I'll just speak for myself, took me away from actually just being in the place. And so what I've found in the last year, and I by extension, like the past several years of putting this book together, I've come to a place where it is like, running feels more of like an integrated practice for me. That's not so much a form of like landscape as backdrop to like Nick's success, and more of a landscape of curiosity that's being like, it's being invited by and invited into simultaneously, and that feels a little more respectful and softer to me than sort of like going out with the idea that I need to get mine. I need to get my run in. I need to get my like vert in. That to me just took away from what it is like I'm actually doing and what it is that actually brought me to this practice in the first place.
What is it that brought you to running in the first place?
Well, I think it actually was a sort of counter. I think it was a counter to a decision early on in my like post college career, where I found myself indoors all effing day, living in Portland, and felt like a really like a strong desire to have a counterpoint. That was basically something that would put me outside as much as I could. And so I think trail running, I was working nonprofit in Portland, Oregon, didn't have any money. The Forest Park was right outside my back door, and that felt like a beautiful invitation to find an experience, like a phenomenological experience that was like in stark contrast to sitting in a cubicle all day. I remember telling myself in college, and all of a sudden I was like early 20s in a cubicle and having a hard time working my ass off for 12 hours a day in a cubicle, and feeling a deep desire to not necessarily change that, but like find some sort of counterweight. And that's how trail running found me.
Also Joe Grant, correct?
Yeah, Joe Grant, Black Diamond athlete.
Short answer.
Dear friend, Joe Grant was sat next to me in this cubicle in Portland. And the story is basically like Joe Grant's a wonderful friend of mine, now a Black Diamond athlete. Maybe we all know Joe Grant. We love that guy. But we have a joke about Joe Grant where you just put a quarter in the Joe FM, that we call it the radio, and it just keeps going. Anyway, he sat next to me in this cubicle, and he was like, kind of looked exhausted. I just met him. We had like a temp job at that point. And he was like, he asked me what I did over the weekend. I can't remember. And I was like, what'd you do? And he's like, I ran 62 miles through the mountains. And I was like, wait. 62? What does that mean? 6.2. And he's like, no, 62. And he just run the Waldo 100K. And I had never heard of these things. This was 2007. And I had never heard of ultra running. Maybe like Dean Karnassus eating pizza. That was about all I had. And thanks, Dean. And thus started this really deep friendship with Joe, and we just ran literally thousands of miles together. He kind of brought me into the scene. So
a lot of people have that story. I also sat in a cubicle next to Joe Grant, and that's how I got into ultra running. Yeah, so many people.
That's what brings us all here today.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is it's sort of a non sequitur, but one of my dad's favorite jokes, and my dad's in his mid 70s, so keep that in mind. I also did not look up the actual syntax of this joke, but from memory, it is a Rodney Dangerfield joke that goes, I told my dad I was sick of my life going around in circles, so he nailed my other foot to the floor. So
nice. That's
maybe
good.
you can try.
That should have been the book. That's crazy. Why didn't you tell me that? Dangerfield.
Man, you should have asked me. Yeah, I mean, I think Rodney Dangerfield is like I think a lot of people say he's the Gary Snyder of Caddyshack. I think I've read that somewhere.
Yeah, somebody said that once for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So,
That I have like a document on this laptop that has like a bazillion different like quotes and like I mean my bookshelf is just full of little dog ears of like where circuitous language is used. Like it's everywhere. Like it's not to sound like a crazy person, but it's like the more you like have that like titrate to that shape, you see it like in everywhere. Everyone's using this language, not necessarily even explicitly, but
I mean, actually, I do wonder, like, I know you say it's everywhere, but to push back on that, I actually feel like a lot of our modern culture is sort of premised on this, like, very objective oriented, like, very, like, this thing has a reason. I am going towards this thing, like, this very, like, ontological way of understanding life and of understanding work and of understanding running. And, like, so much of our productivity culture, like, so much of running culture is like, run the 100 miles and, like, get the trophy and the ultra sign up score and the UTMB index and, like, get the shirt and the belt buckle. Like, they don't give out belt buckles for completing a circle as much.
that's a great idea, though.
Yes.
yeah. Well, I guess UTMB is a circle. But do they
That's
give
true.
belt buckles?
Nope. European.
You get like what do you get instead? What do you get after UTMB? Do you get stuff?
You get a fleece vest.
Oh right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Some people get money, I think.
Some people, like 3 people get money.
They go faster.
People get money. Some euros.
Either a vest or tons of money.
Yeah.
Totally. Can I choose? I'll take the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because that, as I've never, I mean, Brendan, I mean, we've all three of us can say now that we've put books together. I mean, Brendan, you have more experience than all of us. It's by far the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. And that's a function of like endurance, hard-headedness, stubbornness, and also like I want to get this thing to the finish line, so to speak. Like I want to like finish. I want to publish this thing. But really, in the end, like somebody recently said, like once you publish the thing, like there's a date on the calendar, it's out there in the world. It's actually the start of a whole new chapter of relating to the text, because you're actually now in dialogue with a huge audience or whatever audience, like an audience to talk about these ideas. And so actually, it's just not to like make it to kind of swear, like hit it on the nose, but I kind of imagine what's going to happen is when this thing is published, it just starts this new way of relating to the work itself and to the questions that are in this book. And it's not ending there. It's not some finish line, because in fact, like it doesn't necessarily feel like one. It feels like a notch in the belt or something in terms of like some sort of route towards learning about myself and the world. But it feels like just a new sort of version. I have this, just bear with me, but Yassine Daboun, Columbia athlete, living in Portland, got me into running just like Joe did. One of my first sort of friends in that world.
Is that in the next cubicle?
Joe was here. Yassine was here.
What is Portland?
Wow.
It's all boxes. Really.
What a time.
Dean Karnazes right behind Scott Jurek was just catty corner from me.
I paced him at Badwater one year. And when you get to Badwater, you go through registration, you get your swag bag, whatever, and they give you a wooden stake with your number on it and like a vampire stake to like kill vampires. And I remember it was like 100 billion degrees, and I was like, dude, Yassine, what's up with that stake? Like, what's that about? And he's like, yeah, when inevitably your essential organs start, like when your body starts shutting down on this run, and your like shoes have already melted, the ice is gone, your body's starting to shut down, and you can actually put the stake in the sand where you like nearly die, go get medical help. And if you need to come back, and if you want to come back, pull up the stake and keep running. You can, because the cutoff, I don't know what the cutoff is, but it's pretty crazy. So there's a potential to actually put your stake in the ground, go seek medical attention, and come back, pull up the stake, and keep trying to the end. So when I'm thinking about like my creative process, I often think about that. Like I'm just putting my stake in the sand as this like forever race continues. It's really vulnerable to put yourself out there. I mean, in an essay that's published, you're setting yourself up for scrutiny, but it's really an intense multivalent decision that you're making for yourself to like really put yourself in a place where you need to be able to, like the ego is like being stress tested in a way that I feel like so far I've never quite experienced. And that feels like it's never gonna, that's like a constant invitation to be in right relationship with myself and as it moves through the world. And this book is helping me do that, I think.
I was going to say, if you're writing so hard that you frequently need medical attention, we should maybe think about your process.
That's just me going to the coffee. That's the coffee station.
True.
It's like, yeah.
Encourage you to drink more water when you're working.
Cheers.
Yeah, I mean the editorial and rewriting and writing process can probably feel like an infinity loop at some point, and you just have to be like, all right, I'm done. Whereas like running around like Mount Rainier is like you're back at the car, but you're never back at the car with the book. You just got to give up and be like, all right, it's good. It's getting out there. We're sending it out there. We mentioned this earlier because of Strava, but I think you told me last year you were giving up Strava and racing for a year. Can you speak a little bit about one or both of those decisions?
Strava. Oh, let's start with, I guess, racing. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to like, somehow I woke up in the year of our Lord 2024 and I was like, you know what? It's all about this year's I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk this year. I think that I got really interested in wanting to sleep outside more. I wanted to like, I realized, that so much of my running career has been deep immersion in wild space. And it's also been like day to day as a unit. And I felt this deep calling to actually spend more time in the woods, and sleep outside. And I think that like part of me was like, I'm going to try a year off of racing to actually not, because so much of racing, as we know, is that, I mean, my training would take up all summer. I did Transalpine Run, which is like this stage race across the Alps every August, September for the last couple of years. And that basically like framed, kind of like reverse engineered my whole summer to like do these like huge back-to-backs, for training for these things. My weekends sustained themselves as training weekends, and I couldn't go backpacking. I couldn't like walk through landscapes for multiple days because that would go against my like getting ready for these things. And I just said, I'm going to take a year off. And so I did like several big multi-day walks, some with Joe Grant, Forrest Woodward in the Canyon country, some by myself in Portugal, and a couple other ones in the Pacific Northwest that were really special for me. And I only want to do more of that now. It's like fast packing is also a term that sucks. So like what's really light.
It is like a really kind of savage drive-by shooting of North, like
it's a good way of putting it.
Right?
Of slow pack it. Like, what's the alternative?
We need a marketing team that's smarter than us to come up with
regular packing.
Regular packing.
How about just backpack?
Rapid camping.
Mega walking. But I'm still kind of interested in the small, like a tiny, not like cut your toothbrush in half, but like I'm interested in keeping it pretty minimal, but just to be able to have like a graceful walk over like couple hundred miles and have enough in my pack to be able to sleep out. So that's all that I want to do this year. Although there's an asterisk that I was actually asked to go run a race in Antarctica last December. So that I kind of T-boned my no racing in 2024, although that was an opportunity that I just couldn't quite pass up.
To clarify, it was for free. Like it wasn't like somebody was like, hey, you should do this. And they're like, how much is it? And you're like, yeah, sure. It was like, hey, we'll fly you down to do this for free, right?
And if I remember correctly, you did upload this to Strava because out of the deafening Nick silence, there was just like a flurry of activity involving pictures of penguins that was pretty delightful for those of us following at home.
I mainly just wanted to see that Strava would work down there. I was like, does it chart things?
Are there segments in Antarctica?
Oh gosh.
That's got to be at McMurdo.
It must be, right?
People have to do
McMurdo,
yeah,
for sure.
Gotta check out the Antarctica Strava heat map. So we are 3 writers who occasionally write about running, potentially run about writing. It sounds like your relationship with running has shifted slightly, as would be normal for a human living life. But we used to work together at Trail Runner magazine when it was a magazine about trail running. And I'm curious to hear how your relationship to writing about running has changed, because some of that does come through in your book, but also like you also write about lots of other things as well.
Yeah, it's funny because I think this book, not to like harp on the book too much, but the book starts with running. I mean, it's actually starts. That was and no one ever told me that the prologue is the hardest thing to write ever. Just by the way, so that was the biggest bear of this whole project. Like, just write that. Like, I'll put that on my gravestone. Like, prologues are the worst.
Well,
but
gravestone's an epilogue at that point.
that's true. Anyway, I felt a bit of hesitation to start with running for some reason because but at the end of the day, and speaking to the editors and such, it actually felt the most honest. It actually felt the most honest way to write about my experience and being in the world. It actually felt the most real. When I write about running, it feels really honest to me. It's like, it's such a huge part of my life that I have loved, all like such a big community. I mean, you two are testament to that. Like, I love you both, and you're an outgrowth of my love for the running. I I've only become like more intimate with the sport, I think, or the practice. You know, when we worked together, Zoe, I wrote one of my favorite pieces I wrote for Outside Run was this profile of Gregory Gourdet, the Haitian chef, who's also a runner. So that was a really good example for me of marrying these two things that I love. You know, there was food culture, there was, addiction and recovery, but there's also running. I mean, there's identity, but he's also a long distance runner, and running helped him sort of orient himself to the world. And so that was both a curiosity of mine that I'd wanted to do for a long time, kind of a dream assignment. But it was also a reflection of kind of where I was with my own running, where like I actually want to find a relationship with running that feels like it's in right relationship and proportion with my creative outputs, my writing, not necessarily like the main gravitational center of it.
You winnow the book subjects down to these three big circumambulations. That is awkward. And but you've done many of these things, like the Wonderland Trail. You briefly mentioned I forget what the one around St. Helens is called. Is there do you have like an appendix of these types of outings that you would recommend for people that are also circular? Do you have like this tick list where you're like, yeah, these are also great experiences, but weren't necessarily having the depth of the three that are in the book?
Well, it's interesting. There was a point where I actually went to Spain, and I went to the place where like Magellan started, like embarked on his first round the world, like where the first round the world trip happened via ship. Like, and I went and like spent a whole basically day at the mouth of this river that they started and ended, as a way in to talk about the sort of like more, like imperial colonial frameworks of linearity and this, or actually like complicating the shape of circularity, because like there was this like deep interest and so I did a bunch of research on like the history of circumnavigation as an imperial enterprise. And anyway, I don't know why. So, but another one that I'll say, so I do have a tick list of like all these interesting circuitous routes, that being a sort of historical planetary sized one, but also spent a few weeks in Peru, in the Andes. We circumnavigated the Cordillera Huayhuash, which is a beautiful, this like 50, I think it's 50 kilometers in radius. No, in diameter. Radius, diameter. Anyway, very like punctuated bouquet of 20,000 plus foot peaks. A crazy, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and did like an 85-mile circumnavigation. That felt like a very special experience. It was published in Trailrunner magazine, a feature, as I was like feeling my way into this idea. And so there was a few of those that felt like the Pemi Gouesset Loop in New Hampshire in the White Mountains is like probably one of my favorite trails in New England. And nobody told me how heinous it was, though. I moved out there to work at Orion, and they're like, yeah, the Pemi Loop, yeah, that's a 50K in the whites, no problem. And it's a full service situation. Yeah, I think I saw God out there. Yeah, because
it was a spiritual. Okay, yeah, great.
It was a spiritual experience. That's one of my favorite loops on earth, actually. And that didn't make it in the book, but that was again one of these routes that shaped the narrative.
Yeah, like B-side loops,
Yeah,
right?
little
Rarities,
cut
rarities.
loops.
Yeah, deep cuts, rarities, and remixes that come out of the. Yeah,
That's the next book. That's like gonna be a little
Yeah.
like a little zine coming out in 2026.
The
Um,
annotated, like the Nick Triolo walking guide would be extremely long.
Yeah,
The walking
It would be
tour, spiritual walking
totally.
tour.
Sales 5.
That's not the point, though. That's not the point.
No, it's not. It's not.
Why do I think? I went for a run this morning, and I was like, oh, I can just go up here and turn around. And I was like, I'll do a circle since we're interviewing Nick. You know? So I made sure I didn't cross over my route until I got back to the car. So I did that. But why, in your opinion, or just my opinion, are loops more satisfying than going out and back, or maybe even other shapes, including lollipop loops?
I mean, that's a central question, a central curiosity of the book. I think I was actually just thinking about this, like when you go to a new city or and often maybe like this morning, I had a little slice of time, and I did the exact opposite. I did a little out and back in my neighborhood because I had like literally like 20 minutes, and I basically had to get back for this call actually.
I had this really annoying appointment I had to keep.
No, I was so excited, but I just didn't have time. And so when you don't have time, so that's that's into the answer. Like there's when we're not thinking expansively about how we're moving through the world, we like I'm thinking out loud here, but we actually move in maybe more like less creative ways through the world. I was thinking about like time, that route, my transect in the world, how I move through the world. And that example was like a function of being not creative and just like I had no time. And so the actual like shape of moving through the world is changed because of that. It's not bad or good. It's just different. Um, I also think about like when you're in a new city or something like, or, like I was in Denver recently, and I didn't know the city very well. And I think that Strava is a great use of that. Like Strava actually kind of offers great route shapes. And in my case, I just didn't know where I was going. I knew that there was a creek to run up and back. And so I wasn't very creative about my route in that example, A, because I didn't know where I was, B, yeah, timing. It felt like it kind of felt condensed. I think that running, there's something really satisfying. I'm thinking about the Wonderland Trail specifically. It's probably one of my favorite trails on earth. And the fact that, and that's, I've guided them on the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier for years, like these 3-day running experiences. It's almost as if, and I say this in the book somewhere, where it's like, it's almost as if you're getting to experience a place in like, with every step, you're actually experiencing like a subtly different vantage of that place. Like, in some ways, like by going around a place, you're sort of like honoring, or you're attending to all the different sides of a location. So like when I would go across, like around the Wonderland Trail, there'd be so many different climates. Like you get to experience a sort of total full composite or signature of a place, it seems, that I don't quite feel when I'm doing out and backs or I'm doing different shapes. Like there's some sort of signature or identity that you're actually courting or being attendant to when you're circumnavigating, that if that's not too far out in the clouds. I remember that actually for the first time ever around Mount St. Helens, the Lewitt Trail, Brendan is the name, and it's that mountain. They have like the Plains of Abraham, and then they have the lakes on the other side, and there's these like big pumice fields, and there's huge drop-ins to river crossings, and yeah, you're given like this full service identity of a mountain to be with, and that to me is like it like gives you goosebumps, and a lot of like, yeah, that changes me. That has changed me, and that really invites you in a different experience, I think.
I feel like something that really resonated in this for me, and I think one of the reasons I find this just like this idea so interesting, is that like sometimes I forget, and maybe we all do, that like, or for me, like running doesn't
actually, like, the point is there is no point. The reason I enjoy it is because there are no stakes for me. It matters not at all whether or not I run, don't run, doesn't matter. And sometimes I forget that, and I work really hard to make myself forget that. And I tell myself all kinds of stories that what I'm doing has a point and matters, and like that is why I'm doing it, which it isn't. And I feel like uniquely in its own way, the circle or like running around a thing is such like it's a pretty visceral or like literal way of being like, the point is there is no point. The point is to expend an enormous amount of effort to go absolutely nowhere in like not the most efficient way possible. Like the inefficiency is the objective there. And
Nice.
I'm curious like what you think people can learn from maybe running in more circles, because like my learning was like remembering that like there is no point. And I don't know, like sometimes I trick myself into thinking there is by like getting kudos or like doing a race and like, you know, doing this sort of like elaborate scaffolding to convince myself that there is a purpose beyond in the running, when like I originally started running because I was seeking some like very comfortable purposelessness.
I know that Brendan is like just needs to drop the arbitrary stupid goals book. I know you want to say that title, don't you?
I mean, you know what? Yeah, yeah. I
Brendan's
was just gonna
favorite
say, I was just gonna say this loops look nicer on the map when you look at them after you're done.
That's true.
You guys are going deep though. I like it. Like, oh, this is so enjoyable to look at the aesthetic.
Satisfying maps.
Yeah. I feel like we're really getting into nihilism the last couple interviews here.
I know, this is a weird,
it
sorry,
doesn't
weird
matter.
tone.
Do it anyway.
No. But in fact,
Thursday.
like that's. I think it's the exact opposite. I'm going to push back. I feel as though the fact that there's, I mean, one of the refrains in the book is actually this like whisper that comes out in and out of the book that says like, "There's nowhere else to go," and I don't mean to like drop us into some like Dante Inferno, like it would, but
the point that encircles itself.
But the fact that like, I mean, that's a more of an ecological consideration, I think, in some ways, and I think I make that at the end, the last part where I walk around the Superfund site in Montana, the sort of most toxic place in the lower 48s. But there's just no, like, we can't go anywhere else. Like, and so the circle is actually a reminder, a kinesthetic reminder that we're actually like in a bound place here. We have to look after this place that we live. And, you know, the circle is the shape of seasonality. It's a shape of, you know, it's like it's like an ecocentric shape in some ways, but it's also a container. It's like a container that holds us in some ways if we want it to.
So like if the circle functions as like an embodied degrowth manifesto, how do you balance that with like, I also have to like candidly say, I feel like in the book and in your writing, there is also like a fair amount of ambition. Like you frequently write about like pushing yourself pretty far. How do you circle those two squares?
I mean, that's literally and I'm going to push beyond this book, I realize, but like, that's the tension that we're in. That's the tension that I'm in. That's the reason why this book exists. I think that polarity is a reason. I think that's the narrative tension that I'm totally facing in the whole book and continue to face. And then the epilogue, it says something like it's never going to end, that conversation with the self and the relationship with the marketplace, with the sort of economic, you know, and nation state myths that we're handed to when we're born. Like, how do we balance? I have like incredible ambition. I just got off like, you know, reading the script for a piece that I'm writing. That's kind of a seeds for a new book. And I can't wait to get into like new work. And so you both know me well enough to know me. Like I bite off a lot more than I can chew often, and it becomes like a problem in my life in some ways. And I think that's as a memoir, that's like the central concern and opportunity to what does it mean to live well and to live, particularly in these times that are just on fire, and that we're handed these scripts of wanting to like do more, be better, even in like the activist circles. It's like, how do we lay ourselves on the lines more? How do we get arrested more? How do we throw paint on the Mona Lisa more? Like whatever, like what is the thing that we can, like the upsmanship? And I don't know the answer. That's the answer. I actually don't know, but I know that it's a deep and important central tension to the modern predicament.
So,
yeah.
yeah, just similarly on that, you write a lot about like running around places that are under distinct threat, like Tibet, Butte, Mount Tam. Did working on this book shift how you think about environmental storytelling in any way? Because the environment is also a thread that sort of runs throughout your writing as well, and your running, apparently.
When I was in grad school learning how to write environmental writing, creative nonfiction, one of my mentors, William Du Bois from New Mexico, said like character is actually human experience is actually such an important part of writing about the more than human world. Like if you exclude human experience, you're actually like missing the plot a little bit. And he was like, portraits, profile, like offering and I think that I really took that seriously in this book. I have like very important people in all three parts of this book that are sort of these big granite anchors to talk about these places. It's not these sort of like these landscapes that are void of humans. It's actually like I really want to focus on the human experience as a way to have that, to be in conversation with the world, and to be, I mean, yeah. So that for me has changed the way that I see writing about like yeah, that was like a huge different, that has been an evolution in my writing. And I love writing about people. And I think that's, I mean, I think in general, sort of like in our circles, that's no longer a thing. We're like that sort of ode to a tree, environmental writing, where like there's just, it's, wildness is like, doesn't include humans. I think that's sort of like, that's past. But the more interesting writing that I find and I'm interested in doing more of is how humans are metabolizing and being in the right relationship with the world, as not as something separate, but as some extension of the body, of the human body. Like the earth body is an extension of the human body in some ways. I believe that to be true. And so how can we actually play in that sandbox? That's like I think that's a big invitation for our times, actually. How are we actually, like Nick, Zoe, Brendan as authors of work, how are we actually also being authored by, how are we being authored by the place that we're writing about? How is like the place actually informing our creative? How might we understand, Mount Jumbo is like actually a creative force in and of itself, and that's actually helping to like write through me in some ways. So there's a question of authorship that's actually interesting that I've been like playing with these recently. Like it's actually decentering the human as like the individual agent of creative output, and more actually sharing that burden or that opportunity with land itself. Yeah, that's like a emerging question I'm having.
Brendan, maybe you can help us bring it home with a question that's not laden with existential dread and climate threat. I promise, I feel like Nick and I are actually very fun people to talk to.
Super.
I was
Very
actually,
fun
you said how is Mount Jumbo a co-author? And I was like, well, I always spend time on Mount Sentinel, but I think it's more of like a desk I just go sit at. It's a place for sure, but like, nope, this is where I go to do my thinking.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the right way to end it, but I was going to read some lyrics from what I believe is the best Norwegian rapper of all time, Ivan Av, from his song Circle, which
you should do it.
This is in the middle of the song. Yeah, I don't really fuck with triangles no more. I don't really fuck with rectangles either. I don't fuck with hectagons even. I'm done trying to work the angles. It's enough just working the circle. And I actually don't know what the song is actually about, but I remember that off. It's from 2016.
Can you be like a mercenary epigraph like generator? Is that something you can do for the future?
Well, I don't know if you like. I feel like it would be if I were gonna. I don't do epigraphs either. Like you and I have talked about this. I'm like, fucking, that's somebody else's shit. Like, don't point at that. Yeah, and I'm just not using them. But yeah, it's pretty. But yeah, like a very unserious epigraph, like Rodney Dangerfield or Ivan Av. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, gosh, yeah, I don't have a super good way to close it out.
Then, maybe we should end right where we started. in a
You know
circle.
what? Let's do a super light one. That's like, so you bought a house in Missoula. Was that 2022?
Three,
End of 2023?
three, yeah.
And like, I was just like kind of psyched that it was pretty close to us. It's like a mile down the road here. And I didn't realize when you bought it that it was the house itself is a circle, as we can kind of see over your head in the video here.
So,
Like, did you look at other houses, or were you just like waiting for the circle house to come on the market and then buy it? Because you're like, I'm circle guy.
it's funny.
I don't fuck with rectangles.
I don't fuck with triangles.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know triangles. No, it's funny because my publicist was like, we're gonna try to get you into like Architecture's Digest or something. We're gonna like have a conversation with your house about that about the book, and that was a stretch.
I feel like publicists actually make a lot of stretches. Like they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna get you on the Today Show. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you really? I'm not sure.
Today on the 9th hour of the Today Show, circles.
Right?
Here's my online
Circle guy.
interview in dwell.com. It's 100 words. It's fine.
Garden and gun.
I was totally. It's the apex of my career, actually. Yeah. I was like extremely stubborn about. Yeah. I mean, I was not waiting for a circular house. I just literally, it was like 2 years. My realtor was like, dude, are you still alive? Are you still into this thing? And when this house, she'd sent me the listing and then I'd like avoided it or I didn't see it or something. And she's like, dude, 1070 Byron. I just told your whole audience where I live now, apparently. Which is fine. You can't miss it. It's a fucking circular house. But as soon as I cruised past, I was like, I remember walking in and I was like, yep. And even further, I'll just say, actually, it's funny. Right before this call, there's I don't know why I'm telling you guys this, but this seems important. It was built by the next door neighbor who actually owns a yurt company, a really prominent yurt company, and he built this for his mother. And his mother had experienced a deep like loss in her life. Like I think she might have lost her husband or something. I think it was her husband. I don't know the whole story. I just know it was a deep loss, a lot of grief. And I wrote her a letter, like a long speak. Going back to writing, I wrote her a letter about this house, and I wrote her a letter about her grief. And I was like, I walked into your house, and I just know how much love that you've given this house. I know that you want to like replace. You're leaving, and you want someone to really tend to this place. And I wrote like a heartfelt, like I kind of blacked out for a second, and like wrote something from like the depths of me to this woman that I'd never met before. And there were like several bids on this house, and I was offered the house because I felt that, yeah, I don't know. Despite loving the house, this house is exceptional. It was also, there was a story there that this woman really tended to this house. And yeah, in fact, and so she just messaged me. I'd never met her before. She's like, I'm going to be in town in a couple of weeks. I want to come have tea with you. So we're going to sit here in the circular house and have tea together. It's going to be great.
Is she going to give her a copy of the book?
I only have one so far. I
Well,
only have one.
But they're going to make more, as I understand it.
I think they're printing a couple extras. Yeah.
I believe that's the business.
I hope so. I do have
That's what I'm
I
talking
do
about.
have a pre-order.
Okay, yeah. So hopefully, unless they're just taking Zoe's money and just like, hey,
It's happened before.
All right. Maybe next time.
your realtor always is like, write him a letter, it'll work. It always works. And like, they're not usually being like, oh, you're a writer? Cool. Write a letter.
I mean,
they're
People
just
are
like,
going to give me this cash, but
yeah,
I like your writing.
yeah.
If for any reason this person listens to this, it's probably not all about the letter. I'm guessing.
No.
I'm guessing
Yeah.
there were other.
No, there were other
motivations.
considerations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta
guess-
go because it's 4:19. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I'll see you,
Okay.
Brendan. Bye.
Okay. Thank you guys. I'll see you soon.
All right.
See you virtually soon, Zoe.
Yeah. Thanks, Brendan.
Brendan.
Have fun in
I
the
guess.
canyon.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Will do. I'll probably see you before then.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Cool. We'll do like a little. I did have one more question, and then I can editing make it sound like Brendan didn't leave in the middle. Not in the middle.
Great.
We're not going to do another 56 minutes, but I am curious, like sort of going back to where we started. Are you feeling like you're ready to move on from circles? Are circles always going to be with you, like at the risk of becoming the circle guy or having like an over identification with the circle, like, I don't know, where are you at with circles?
Well, it's weird because I just having this piece being published next week in Emergence, which I'm really excited about. It's about a river, but the same thing happened. Really, it wasn't about circles or shapes necessarily, but I went to the beginning of the story with a certain idea of what it was I was seeking, and it totally like blew up. Like everything, like the river, this story that I had in my life or in my mind, like it brought so much more. There's like so much more abundance in a story that was not the one that I showed up with in my mind. And I think that even this, I mean, this book, yes, it's about circles, and yes, it's about circuitous movement. But then by the end of the book, in some ways, it's sort of like it doesn't actually hold like it's not just a book about circles, of course. It's like it's more than that. I mean, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that both of these writing projects, this book included, started with a deep obsession with that actual shape of moving around in circles. And it is, I mean, that's like the conceit of this book, but it's also a conversation. It's like it's a meditation on being present with the shapes that we follow, whatever they are, being present with like the narratives that we've been given. Like how conscious can I be about the ways I'm moving through the world, I guess is the larger sort of like sentence. I want to be as conscious as I can about the things like how I'm moving and how I'm relating to the world. And I think that I was relating in a world that felt incomplete, or like it felt contrived, or it felt objectifying in some ways. And I desperately sought a different way of being in the world. And that'll never stop. But to answer your question, I have like a ton of ideas for ways of writing in the future that don't include circles. And I'm excited to like move beyond it. Yeah. I mean, I'm so proud of this book. I'm very proud of this book. And I'm also really excited to
fuck with some
like
triangles.
Fuck with some trapezoids or something. Yeah. I mean,
Trapezoids.
I loved this. This is a deep calling that was listened to, and I'm really proud of that. And I think it's like coming to completion in some ways. It feels like really healthy. It feels really celebratory. In fact, like I just put up, you know, I'm having a book launch in July here in Missoula, and I want it to be a celebration. It's like it's some sort of full circle completion of something that I really cared about. And I think by offering it to the world, it'll also open up space. It'll be some sort of ending, and it'll open up space for something new. And I'm listening to that right now, because it's, you know, it's what's cool about this book is it's like it's done now. It's like as an object, it's done, and so I can actually think about it's already making space for something new, and that's exciting.
Well, thank you so much for joining us to talk about circles and running and writing and doing all of them circuitously.
Thank you. Thanks, Zoe. Thanks, Brendan.
So after we interviewed Nick, he was featured in People magazine on the eve of the launch of his book.
Wow. This is probably the first person that we've had on the podcast who's also been in People magazine.
That's a good question. I think so. I mean, and this is People Online. I don't know if he's actually in the print magazine, but the headline is, "For writer and ultramarathoner Nick Triolo, everything is circular. Even his house, ! Parentheses exclusive. Close parentheses."
See? Well, I feel like we got the scoop on People.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think we were an easier sell for the publicists probably than People magazine. So I'm just going to read you the first 3 paragraphs. For author Nicholas Triolo, everything is circular, even the house where he lives in Missoula, Montana. His new book, The Way Around, A Field Guide to Going Nowhere, out July 8th from Milkweed Editions, is part memoir, part meditation on a way of living and looking at the world. 5 minutes talking to Triolo, and it's clear he's a man who walks the circuitous walk. Do you think they actually spent more than 5 minutes talking to him? Anyway, he moved
absolutely
into his...
not. 100% no.
Last paragraph. He moved into his circular home while he was working on a book about circles, broadly painted. Quote, "This book about circularity, about nonlinear forms of thinking, of acting, of moving in the world, has just been working on me so much. There's alternative ways of being in the world," he explains. When his realtor at the time sent him a photo of the house where he now lives, he knew he was meant to live there.
So fun. It makes me
Wow,
think
they got
like,
a photo of his house in here. This is so creepy. Like, dude.
this makes me wonder if like there's like some archival interview where it's like People Magazine parentheses exclusive. Alan Watts doesn't like what you're doing. And they send some like cub reporter to talk, like to interview this heady writer about how there is no destination. Feels like hazing.
Right?
Respectfully.
This is fun. This is interesting. I can't believe they put this in People Magazine. It's not what I think of People Magazine.
No.
Usually it's not this deep. There's a lot of big words in here.
Do you think it's like sandwiched between like, here's what Britney Spears eats in a day, and then like something about like Alison Brie changing hairstylists?
Well, actually, they do have books. Yeah, I think it might be.
There you go.
It was written by the senior editor of books at People. I can't see her. Yeah, she's kind of on. Okay, yeah.
They've got
All
it.
right.
They have a senior book editor.
Yeah.
We don't have that at Ultra Sign Up.
You could be senior book editor.
Yeah, I can be honorary senior book editor.
Just throw that under your, yeah. So anyway, he's like, done a little book tour, like 10, I think he did like 10 stops, and like, he's gone, hit the road, trying to sell these books. And, that might be the biggest thing he got, I wonder.
Yeah. I feel like now every time I do a loop that's any amount of exciting, I take a screenshot of it on Strava and I send it to him for circular approval.
Okay. So speaking of circles and running around in circles, have you looked at the Cowboy Yeti in Bastrop, Texas?
Ooh, I love cowboys and I love Yetis. I'm interested.
Yeah, it's an interesting merger of two icons, I'd say. Also the hometown of Ryan Holiday, famous author.
Yeah.
Daily Stoic and whatnot. Yeah, 20K loops. There's a 7K, a 20K ruck, a 20K, a 40K, a 60K, and a 100K at Bastrop State Park. The average temperature in January is 50 to 56 degrees, which sounds pretty nice.
Sounds pretty balmy. I know it'll be freezing cold wherever I am, so might be a good chance to go run in some t-shirt weather down in Texas.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean 50 to 56 degrees in Montana in January. It's definitely tempting. Do you think they would just fly you or me down there to do it? I don't know.
Yeah, we're available to come wear t-shirts at your mild winter race.
I would do the 100K.
I'll run in circles.
This looks fun.
This does look fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, 800 feet of gain each loop. That's pretty tame, but just enough to keep things interesting.
Yeah. No, that's great. So the Cowboy Yeti, Saturday, January 17th, 2026. That is the day after my birthday. That is Muhammad Ali's birthday. Rest in peace. And Bastrop State Park, Central Texas, a few miles outside of Austin.
Maybe we should celebrate your birthday by running 100K worth of loops in Texas.
I'll do
Hit
it.
us up, Brendan's birthday party down in Bastrop.
I'll rip off some loops.
Do you have any loops that you're particularly fond of in your life, like the quintessential Brendan loop?
Here's one that I really enjoy. That is not my story, but my friend Sid, who has run, I think he's on his he might be done 13 New York City marathons. So he lives on the Upper West Side, a few blocks from the west side of Central Park on 66th ish, and he told me, well, he loves the marathon because it's the New York City Marathon. It doesn't really need much introduction, but he takes the subway, he walks out of his house, walks 2.5 blocks, I think, gets on the one train, takes the one train to the Staten Island Ferry to buses where they pick you up and take you to the start line. And then he runs this, giant loop around New York, ending in Central Park, and then walks to his house. And it's this huge loop around New York that takes literally the entire day.
That's awesome.
And he's used all these different modes of transportation, including his own feet. It's fantastic. And then he orders a pizza, from
the most important of circles.
Yes, exactly. Which is also a circle. So that's when I think of super awesome loops that stories about circles. That's a really cool one. Even though if you look at it on a map, it's not actually a circle, but it's
probably a little chunky looking circle.
Yeah, and just ins and outs and going over bridges, and just so they hit all 5 boroughs or whatever. But yeah, that's a fun one. And then I don't know, I do when I bike our little guy to daycare in the morning, I ride 1.5 miles to his daycare, and then I come back on the bike and I ride over to the Mount Sentinel, the M Trailhead, and then I run up Mount Sentinel, which and then I make that into a loop, and then I do the bike ride home. So it's this sort of double figure 8 loop that I do, but it's kind of a big loop that starts and ends at my house twice a week or 3 times a week.
Like the dad core infinity loop.
Oh yeah, I like that. I'm just gonna start saying that on Strava. Actually, I'll make it a segment.
Thanks for joining us on the Trailhead. If you love this episode, leave us a review. Share it with your trail crew and make sure to subscribe so you never miss an adventure. Give us a follow on Instagram at TrailheadPod. And you can reach us anytime at trailhead@ultrasignup.com. We'd love to hear your stories, questions, guest ideas, or just to say hi. And don't forget to check out all of the shows in the Ultra Podcast Network. We're building something special, and it's just for you. We'll see you every other week, right here on the Trailhead.